600 to 1,200 family farmers in WA's eastern wheat belt are under siege by the banks and both the state and federal governments. They are conspiring to starve the farmers of credit in order to force them off the land and or privatise and sell their cooperative to foreign grain cartels.
You're going to get through this. Easy for listening. I was able to do it. I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are. Not me. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing. Today my fellow shadowboxer is Judy Sudholz, who represents a long-standing, traditional farming family in WA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Judy, tell me something about yourself.
My husband and I have been farming in the Western wheat belt, I guess, for 35 years now. And before that, I grew up on a family farm even further west than that. So yes. I've been on farm all my life. We have 4 children, one who has gone onto the farm to become a farmer. You know, we're not just a family that, you know, are going to be sell out and disappear as a farming family. Our son wants to continue to farm, so we intend to stay on the land as long as we can to produce food for the nation and the world.
That's good to hear and good to meet with you. How many farming families in the wheat belt in WA, and how much they're producing, how much wheat they're producing, and what's happening with that?
Well, at the moment there are about 4,300 wheat belt farmers. Of course, there are other farmers who, you know, dairy, etc., because they all have the same sort of issues that we have. But the wheat belt farming is, those 4,300 produce, on an average, 12 million tonnes of wheat.
Per year?
Per year.
12 million tonnes?
12 million tonnes of wheat.
Can we eat that much of wheat in Australia?
No, about 90 to 95% of what we produce in WA is actually exported overseas. So we are one of the main wheat producing bowls for Near East Asia, actually. Most of our grain goes to Asia, Egypt, a fair bit goes to China and places like that, you know. So we have a large, and we have a large influence on people's diets in those nations.
So one may think the government, recognizing the very importance of the wheat production in that quantity and 95% of export on that, they think it's very, very important, so we have to protect and help and assist all these farming families.
Well, at the moment, I don't think our government does. Previous governments have done, but at the moment, I think because of our mining boom, so to speak, farming is being put on the shelf, basically, and not thought of. Actually, no Australian political party has a policy for agriculture at the moment.
How about the Nationals?
No, they don't even have a policy for agriculture. But they say they represent the country, but they don't actually have an agriculture policy.
So how the hell the Nationals, you know, get this success in the previous election and they get into Parliament?
Well, it's a tradition, you see. People vote how their parents voted. This is the issue in the country. But it's got to change because that just doesn't work anymore. You know, people are going to have to stop and think how they vote, where their vote is going, and vote for people who are going to not only support but encourage the industries, particularly the primary industries that we need in this nation. You know, we've got to do that, and that's a cultural thing that's got to happen in not just in the country either, in the cities as well, because 12 million tonnes of grain being produced in WA actually produces a lot of income. It supports all the country towns, but also there are a lot of businesses in Perth that benefit and rely on agricultural input, and otherwise they wouldn't exist. So, you know, it has a far-reaching effect this crisis that we're having in the wheat industry at the moment. But it's not a new crisis.
No.
No, it's not.
It's traditionally coming back in a circle and hit the heads of the farmers and the farming families. And I think traditionally one more thing exists with farming is the love and hate between the farmers and the bankers. I think it's more of the hate than the love from the side of the farmers. And I don't think the banks really love farmers, or they do understand and appreciate what they're doing and how they're doing it. Now, the situation was developed lately in WA is that we got from the 4,300 farming families, 1,200 of them were facing with serious problems because this year the bank said, we're not giving you money to plant the crops or purchase it, so you're out of business. And the farmers say, we don't want to have a handout from the government, but please, state government, Colin Barnett, listen to us, we need $100 million loan with a little bit of interest on it. And then Colin Barnett said, yeah, we heard that, we not have a policy, ha ha ha, we give you $2 million plus $1 million. And in that loan, what they want to give is $20,000 from the $1 million is for the farmers and for the farmers who are leaving their farm. So what's that? Tell me, what can you buy for $20,000?
Maybe you can pack up your house and move it somewhere, but you can't live anywhere with $20,000, that's for sure. But yeah, no, the state government's offer obviously is not adequate in any way, shape or form. It's actually an insult. It is actually an insult to the family farmers who all they want to do is produce food. That's what they want to do. You know, the majority of them...
They're not for profit, they're for hard work, producing food, making a reasonable living out of it. And that's it. They're not up to, you know, huge profit to make for the shareholders. They're just family supporters.
That's it.
Is it hard to understand?
Well, it's not hard for me as a family farmer. But, I mean, for a lot of people, it's difficult to understand that somebody would commit their whole life to producing food for somebody else. And that's what we do. You know, if it wasn't for farmers around the world, we would not. Nobody would have food, and that's the situation we're in.
The bread for the people of Perth, not coming for Woolworths or Coles or for Brumbies, because they're not the bread makers; they're the bakers only. It couldn't be made without you guys to producing it.
No, that's right.
And then we got the banks suddenly just saying for 1,200 families, now you're not gonna get money from us any longer. How can this happen?
Well, it's happened over a period of time because on our family farm, I know that it was back in 2001 we had our first drought and we produced per hectare 400 grams of wheat, where we usually produce 2,000 grams or 2 tonne of wheat per hectare. And then after that we had a series of frosts and then droughts, and then they've been pushing the price of land up so the banks could then lend more money to the farmers who were struggling at that time because of the drought situation. So the land prices grow up, they're allowed to lend more money, farmers borrow the money because they want to keep producing the grain, and it gets into this vicious cycle, and then the interest rates go up, interest rates come down. You know, you can't have a fixed term loan of any long-term duration like we used to have years and years ago. And because the banks are in such a position, you know, they owe was it $12 trillion worth of derivatives, they're not going to lend money to people who they think may not be able to pay that money back. So therefore they're going to say, no, we can't lend you any more money, but we're going to take your land off of you if you decide you want to, you know, and we can sell it to multinationals who want to buy our land. I mean, China wants to buy our land, Britain's buying our land, Saudi Arabians buying our land. We've got people from all over the world buying our land. Obviously it's productive land, and just the farmers need some assistance to get over this hurdle that's been created through, not of their own fault mostly, because, you know, farmers don't go out to make a loss. They intend to make a profit to cover their costs so that they can farm the following year, you know, send their kids to school, all the
they
things...
want to live their normal daily life.
Normal daily lives,
yeah. No magic in that.
No.
And I heard that the whole world farmers are in trouble.
Yes, they are. Because of a policy which is generated around the world by the international banking community of free trade and globalisation, you have this situation where the big multinational grain traders, or what we call the grain cartels, basically control the grain marketing industry. And they pick and choose what wheats they buy or what grains they buy, what price they sell and buy at, and thus they also speculate on these grains. That's where they make most of their money, on speculation. It's not the actual trading of the grain, but the speculation on what the price is going to be or not be.
So who are the members of this cartel? It's so many Australian companies, 10 of them, or who are the members of this grain cartel of the world?
There's not very many. Well, the main grain cartels are Louis Dreyfus, Archer Daniel Midland, or ADM. You have Bunge, and you have Cargill's, Conagra, which is, has been amalgamated now into, as far as I can understand, into Gavilon. And you have Monsanto, who is the major seed owner of the world. They own most of the seed companies in the world, so you know they are a big player in this as well. So you have these main cartels, and they're the same cartels that back in the...
So they are all American-based groups, or...
They're all multinational companies. They had their headquarters wherever they like to have them at any one time. They can move their headquarters whenever they feel like it.
Yes, I understand. Judy, we have to come back to this one in our second half. Please stay with us, because we're coming back after the short break and talking more about the problems of the wheat belt, the farming in WA. Welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing. My guest is Judy Sudholz. Judy, why do we need to sell every year the wheat to the cartel? So why don't we control our own future?
Getting right into international politics here. When Australia signed on to the WTO, the World Trade Organisation, in there's a clause that says any country that signs on is not allowed to stockpile food. That's why France doesn't have its stockpiles anymore, and Denmark doesn't have its stockpile of butter, and you know, the butter mountain that they used to have, they don't have that anymore. No country is allowed to stockpile food, but that's just that international ruling that they produce. But then you also have the situation where the grain cartels, speculating on grain, buy the grain at the cheapest price that they can.
To buy?
To buy. They buy at the cheapest price, and then they sell it at the maximum price that they can get. So free trade is not free trade. It's free to them because they buy it at the cheapest price. But for any producer, they're at the whim of these cartels or all multinationals. You know, so it doesn't matter whether it's grain or whether it's milk now or whether it's, you know, even potatoes is a situation there, and eggs and everything, all the vegetables, everything you've got is subject to this free trade globalisation system. So, you know, we have a situation where the farmers now have to sell their grain every year because they have to pay their interest rates to the banks, which they've borrowed money from.
Which is $1 billion each year from West Australia, from the farming families, yes. 9.5% charge from the banks.
So we're forced to sell our grains at what we think is the best price. But how do you know what the best price is? Because, you know, we're not grain marketers. We are grain producers. So to be a grain marketer, you've got to be sitting at a computer in the know all the time to be able to trade that grain properly. We can't do that. And when we had, in WA, we had the grain pool, which used to sell the grain for us, or in Australia we had the Australian Wheat Board, which used to sell the wheat for us. They were a major player in Yeah, in the world grain market, and we haven't got that anymore. You know, how can we as a small individual farmer compete with the multinationals who know all the tricks of the trade, who know what the market's doing, and they influence the market by their speculative trading on the spot markets.
And they, I bet you, they're storing this huge amount of wheat and they're selling whenever they like to sell. They're stockpiling it in countries which are not signed into that trade agreement.
I don't know what they're doing, but I do know that most of Australia, West Australia's grain has gone out of WA before the next harvest. So it's going somewhere. And farmers are getting paid for it, but I mean, what they're getting paid for it is similar to what we were getting back in the 1970s. You know, it hasn't gone up, and yet all our costs have gone up. All living expenses have gone up, and everything else has gone up.
So the farmers said, Colin Barnett, we need $100 million, not as a grant, as a loan. A low interest rate, so we can carry on business. Barnett said, "All right, listening, we heard that, so you're going to get $2 million plus $1 million. That's what you get." The federal government jumped in, Judy Sudholz, who loved to give away money, and she said, we're giving $100 million for the Australian farmers. And from the $100 million, if I'm right, WA will receive $60 million, which is make the shortage $40 million between the needs and what we get. The state government have to distribute and make the assessment which farmers got how much. You know what? The state government want to charge the federal government millions of dollars for administration fee. What's going on in here?
I mean, you have a situation where all government departments have to charge for their charge a fee for their services. I mean, years ago, government departments, that's what we paid them to do. They didn't charge us for their services. So you know
exactly.
now, and so that's, you know, under the Hilmer report, that's what's occurred. You know, the competition policy is everybody has to charge for their services. Well, that's not a service if you charge for it, really.
It's not a service, we're paying the tax. The tax is used by the government to establish the government and provide the services. Yeah. So why are we paying for the services when the service we've already paid for? It is a government, not a company.
Well, they're all treated as companies. All departments are treated as companies, all councils are treated as companies. That's why they have a CEO now instead of a shire clerk, because they are a company. So all government departments are treated the same. They have to make a profit.
Something is very wrong in the system.
Very wrong.
So I think I heard about an organisation which is called CBH. Tell me about that.
CBH, Cooperative Bulk Handling, it's 80 years old this year. It's a cooperative.
Cooperative, yes.
So it is actually still a cooperative today. It's not a corporation. It's a cooperative still now. Sorry. Instead of having bags of wheat at sidings, they created and built storages, bulk storages, so that they could put all the grain into one silo, all the grain of that quality it is now, into one silo. That's that quality. If you want that grain, it comes out of that silo. It doesn't matter whether it came from
which farmer is
Joe Bloggs down the road or Peter Brooks, wherever, you know, it doesn't matter whoever grew the grain.
That's a good method, but this is the only sort of cooperative like that exists in whole Australia.
That's about the last one, yes.
Last one.
Yeah.
Now, it's in danger.
Is.
What is the danger?
There's been a call for CBH to be privatised or corporatised, as they say, so that the shareholders, which are the wheat growers of WA, they have one share each in the cooperative, so it's a true cooperative, so that if it's corporatised, it can then be listed on the stock exchange so that they can sell their shares, because they estimate that CBH is worth about $4 billion. Well, if you sell it for $4 billion, you're only going to get $1 million each, and that's not really going to solve the problem, because $1 million is, for some people, is just not enough money.
So why do we need to public list this?
We don't. Well, there is no logic in it, really, because CBH was set up to create a surety for the farmers of WA.
Absolutely.
So that, and it's not just the farmers that set it up, it's the current farmers and the future farmers, because CBH keeps their transport costs, their handling costs and every other cost that they have at a minimum that they can.
That's
so that they
asset.
don't actually make an excessive profits, because they don't pay a rebate or anything to the shareholder. Instead, what they do is they keep their costs as low as possible. So
it's working for us.
It's working for
not
us.
for
the
any
farmers,
other shareholders.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong with the existence of this.
No, the primary industry is the second biggest income earner. So, you know, you've got the mining industry, but a lot of the profits from mining industry go overseas.
All of them almost going overseas from the mining industry.
Yeah, so, you know, farming industry, it stays here. You know, most of these farmers are family farmers. Some of them have got very large and they almost look like corporations, but, you know, there are still a lot of family farmers in WA. And
the only thing is wrong, the government of Australia and the state government of Western Australia, who is not prepared to tell the banks and give the farmers money with no interest, let them do their job, because that's so important for us.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the offer from Mr Barnett was almost a slap in the face for most farmers, because $20,000 to go leave the land, well, what could you do with it? You can't do anything with it, really. It's just an insult. But Gillard's offer is a little better, but then you've got the issue of who is eligible. What's the eligibility criteria? What do they deem to be viable farmers? This is, you know.
Bureaucrats have to measure the viability of the farms when they don't even ever seen a farm in their life.
No, and most of them wouldn't even know what a farmer does.
Yeah, but that's a nice task, and it's paid again by the taxpayers.
Yeah. What we really need is we need a debt moratorium, you know, a halt to what's going on. You know, if you understand what a debt moratorium is, it says this is the line in the sand, no more is going to be sent. We're going to restructure these loans so that they can be paid off, low interest loans.
That's why.
Particularly from the government, low interest loans over a long-term period. You know, that's what we need.
So how can you think you can achieve what the 4,300 farmers together can do to achieve that?
They just have to make themselves more politically aware of what's going on, because at the moment they think, oh, well, the Liberals will fix it or the Nationals will fix it. But unfortunately, they're not going to fix it. That's all there is to it.
Colin Barnett first went to talk to the bankers before he announced the $3 million all up, and not went to talk to the farmers before.
Banks are amongst the biggest donators to political parties in Australia. If you can't understand that, you've got to get real. The banking system is one of the biggest donators to political parties in Australia.
But the bankers got the money from the government because we print the money, and we, the people and the country, are the guarantee for the money, not the banks.
The idea is, unfortunately, the idea is to get rid of farmers so that there's no food production, therefore we reduce the world's population.
But the Chinese and the others want to buy the land because they want to produce food for their own people.
Yeah, but they are sovereign nations. China, Russia, India, Argentina, they're sovereign nations.
And they
understand the value of their own people.
Why don't you think the government is jump in and sit down with the bank and tell the 4 big banks of Australia, guys, you come to us in 2008 and this world crisis is kicked in, and you begged, you cried out for help, and we, the government, give you the guarantee of our triple rating as a nation. Now you can borrow money cheaper and successfully. The economic crisis and the banking is your screw up because you are the one who going out for the market, you gambling the money away of the people, and we helped you. Now, your turn to help the farmers.
Because unfortunately, I don't think Australian government understands the value of its own people. You know, we are now 23 million people, and we have this vast nation that could be developed over the top. You've no idea what the developments could be for this nation, and yet there's this thought that we're overpopulated. Now, how can we be overpopulated? Where I am, there's nobody within 3 kilometres of where I live. You know, it's just overpopulated. What's that?
It's a nice jargon coming from a bureaucrat.
Yeah. Yeah, but in
Or a
Melbourne,
politician.
Melbourne and Sydney may be overpopulated. I don't think Perth is, though.
Not yet.
No.
On that note, Judy, thank you very much for your discussion today. And please come in again next week, same time, same channel.